Om Nainam Chintanti Shastrani Nainam Dahati Pavakaha Nachainam Kledayantyapu Nashoshayati Marutaha Acchedyuyam Adahyuyam Akledyushoshya evacha Nitya sarvagatasthānur Achaloyam sanatanaha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The sword cannot cut it. Fire cannot burn it. Water cannot moisten it. And the wind cannot dry it. The soul, the self, cannot be cut, cannot be burned, cannot be drowned, cannot be blown away. It is everlasting, all-pervasive, immutable, and ever the same. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Our subject today is making sense of life. Biologists tell us that the lotus leaf is super hydrophobic. What does that mean? If you throw some water, say on a sheet of plastic or glass or a wall, the water will roll off the wall, but some water will stick to it because it interacts with the surface, whatever that surface may be. But if you do the same thing with a lotus leaf, the water rolls off. All of the water. There is no water left sticking to the lotus leaf. So that is super hydrophobic. There's a wonderful waterproof surface of the lotus leaf. Because of its structure, because of a waxy coating, the water just does not interact. It just rolls off. So, more than 1,000 years ago, Shankaracharya referred to this in one of his famous poems. He says that life is uncertain. Life is unpredictable, fickle, just like water trembling on the lotus leaf. Those droplets of water, they are being moved by the wind. Anytime they will roll off because they are not adhering to the leaf at all. So he used this simile to describe the nature of life. Life is very uncertain. Anything can happen at any time. Just like that water can roll off any time, it doesn't stick. Sri Ramakrishna described it in a slightly different way. He said there is a lot of confusion in this world. If you go in one direction, somebody will chase you with a shovel. If you go in another direction, somebody will threaten you with a broomstick. Yet another direction, somebody will run at you with a shoe, threatening to give you a shoe beating. So he says, this is a confusing world, confusing situation. He also said that in this world of Maya, you cannot accurately predict what the results of your actions will be. You know, when you go to the lab, you mix this substance with that substance, and you can predict that this will be the result every time. It's consistent. Hydrogen and oxygen make water. It's very consistent. There is a ratio to it, and you make water. But he said, when it comes to this world of Maya, this life of ours, you cannot predict that one kind of action will produce a certain result. So sometimes we find we do good to others with the best intention, and the result is bad. Sometimes we know we could have done better, and the result is good. So it's really hard to predict. And he says, why? Because there are too many variables here. I am working my own karma. You are working your own karma. Your karma has an effect on me. My karma has an effect on you. And all these pieces have to fit together. Plus, we have the karmas of our previous lives. So all these things have to fit together, and they do fit together. But because of our limited understanding and the limited scope of our vision, it seems to make no sense. So life seems to make no sense. So it's an uncertain life, it's a confusing life, it can be tough. And this condition starts right from our birth. What is the reaction of the baby when it comes into this world? It cries. And it's not a gentle sobbing. It is a piercing, full volume, full lung capacity cry, as if the baby wants the whole world to know I'm here. So the baby was safe and warm and comfortable in the mother's womb, and now he's alone and cold outside. So it cries. So what does the doctor do? The doctor, as soon as possible, puts the baby in the mother's hands for skin-to-skin contact. It's called the golden hour. That first hour after birth is very important. The child needs the contact with the mother. So the baby is pacified with the mother. Then it feels hungry. Again it cries. Then the mother nurses the baby, and the baby is satisfied. So this pattern that it starts with our birth continues throughout our lives. We cry, we are satisfied. We cry, we are satisfied. Now, as grown-ups, we may not cry like babies do, but there is a cry in our minds. I want this, I want that. And that cry is like the piercing cry of a baby. It just won't leave us alone. So, I want to get married. So we get married, and we are satisfied for some time. I want to have kids. We have kids, and we are satisfied for some time. I want to succeed in my career. I want to have a good financial situation. We get it, and we are satisfied for some time. So this goes on throughout our lives. Happiness and misery. I want, I get, I want again. But we rarely stop to think, why am I alive? What is the purpose of my life? And even at the still deeper level, who am I? Who is this living being who is living this life? So we are too busy to ask these questions. If we ask the average person, they will say, I am so and so. And I am this age, I am this gender, I am this nationality, etc., etc. And if you ask what is the purpose of life, well, to be happy, to have a family, to be successful, etc., etc., etc. But there is no real understanding of any underlying purpose in life. These are short-term goals that we all have. But what about the purpose? What about the meaning? Is there a meaning or not? Well, the general opinion seems to be, the majority seems to think that no. there's really no meaning in life. Why is that? Why we think that way? Well, it all started with the scientific thought entering mainstream. With the appearance of scientific thought, religion was displaced. So in the past, religion used to answer these questions. Religion told you why you live and how to live. So what happened was, with the appearance of science and scientific thinking, we don't rely on religion anymore. Now we had to ask science about the meaning of life. So it's not that there are still religious people and there are still people who believe that life has a meaning, but I'm talking about the majority or a great part of the society. So when, like Nietzsche said, God is dead, what did he mean by that? God is dead. He meant that there is no real good reason to believe in the existence of God. We don't have any reason. When we look around us, we don't see proof of the existence of God, and we don't see any indication that there is an all-merciful, all-powerful God behind this world. Because it wouldn't be the mess it is if God was all-powerful and all-merciful. So, hence, there is no reason to believe in God. Hence, God is dead. If God dies, the meaning of life dies with him or with her. Now, I wouldn't say that God is dead, but I would say he's in critical condition. So, he's not doing very well. But there is still hope. He's not quite dead. So you have to go to science to ask for the meaning of life. And science will tell you, oh, life arose as just a random interplay of chemicals and gases, and the meaning of the purpose of life is the survival and propagation of your genetic material. That's the meaning of life. So it's a very bleak view of life. It reminds me of a joke. There was a patient very ill in the hospital, and he asked the doctor a question. He asked him, "Doctor, what happens after we die?" And the doctor smiled and very kindly replied, "Oh, we clean the bed and admit a new patient." So it is a truthful answer. From the point of view of the hospital, that is what happens after we die. They clean the bed and admit a new patient. They are busy, they're admitting new patients every day, so they need all the beds. So it's the correct answer. Just don't ask a doctor for these questions. But when science tells that the purpose of life is the survival and propagation of our genetic material, to me it sounds like that. Like we clean the bed and admit a new patient. It's just a very superficial, very materialistic understanding of life and what life is about. So it all depends on the point of view. The patient who asks the question, he is not asking from the point of view of the hospital. He thinks, I'm a living being. I think, I feel, I love, I have my experiences, I have my hopes. What will happen with all that when the body dies? Is that the end of everything, or does something survive? Am I going to just disappear? What happens? So that is the question we want to answer. From each one of us, our subjective point of view, what happens to my life, to all this wealth of experience, all this drama that goes on in our lives? So science can never really satisfy us with that 100% materialistic approach. If we accept that view of science, if we rely on science alone, then naturally that will be the answer. When matter ceases to exist, that is the end of everything. If you have a very materialistic view of the universe, everything is destroyed. We see that all around us. There's a beautiful couplet of Kabir. He says, seeing the chalti chakki, the grinding stones, Kabir laments, because everything that falls within the two stones is crushed and destroyed. So he saw the millstones for grinding the cereal. There are two round, flat stones. One is fixed on the ground, the other one is placed on top of it, and they rotate. The top one rotates. So these are heavy, round stones. And in the middle there is an opening where they pour the cereal. It falls between the two stones and it gets crushed. It gets ground to flour. So Kabir saw that mill and said, this is duality. The two stones are duality. Anything that falls between the two stones is bound to be destroyed. So anything that is material in this universe of duality and multiplicity is bound to be destroyed. So if we identify with matter alone, we will be destroyed. It depends on our point of view. If we think of ourselves as matter, we will follow the way of matter, and there is no way around it. There is no escape. Now, Sri Ramakrishna gave a twist to this teaching. He said, human beings are like grains. They have fallen between the two stones, and they are about to be crushed. But there is a peg at the center that holds the stones in place. And the few grains of cereal, they get lodged near the peg. They don't get crushed. What is that peg? God. So he says, if you take refuge in God, you will be saved. You will be spared. Now, what does that mean? Does it mean that our body will not die? Of course not. Our body will still die. There is no escape from that. Then what does it mean? That we will be spared. Well, like the Gita says, Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Even a little of this dharma, even a little of this understanding, spiritual understanding, will save us from the great fear. Now, what is the greatest fear of them all? The fear of death. So when death comes, if we have a little of this understanding, a little of this awareness that we are not matter, that we are not just material beings, that something survives, we will not be afraid of death. That will save us from that great fear. The Gita has another beautiful verse. It says, Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naro parani, etc. So it means, just as people discard old, worn-out clothes and put on new ones, which is a very natural thing. We all do. If something gets torn, if something is worn out, if we wear it, people will tell us, why are you wearing that? So we, especially in the monastery, sometimes we do that, and somebody will tell us, Swami, don't wear that anymore. It's threadbare. So, okay, we throw it away. So just as people do that, and they put on new clothes, so the embodied being throws away worn-out bodies and enters new ones. What a beautiful example from thousands of years ago. It's so current today. Just imagine with how natural and what an insignificant matter for us it is to discard a piece of clothing and put on a new one. It's like we don't even give a thought to it. But death is a big deal. great terror. Well, the Gita says it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. If something is worn out and doesn't work anymore, well, get a new one. It makes perfect sense. But human nature is such that we tend to hold on to whatever we have. We are afraid of what are we going to get in the next. We don't know. There's no guarantee. If I have a piece of clothing, I know what I'm getting. But the Gita says it is as simple as that. Researchers say that it is very important for our well-being to find meaning in life, to find a purpose, why we are alive. People who have an understanding of a certain meaning in their lives, they are less likely to be depressed, to be anxious. They are more likely to be contented and focused. And it makes sense when you think about it, that if we have a purpose, our lives should be better. When you find purpose in whatever you are doing, you can cope better. To give you an example, say somebody wants to join the Marines. Now it's the toughest military, I don't know what you call it, is the toughest assignment in the military. To be a Marine is a very demanding training. But they want to join the Marines, they have to undergo that training. So sometimes you see in the movies or in documentaries, the drill instructor is shouting in their faces, and just humiliating them and pushing them to the limit, physically and mentally. They are really pushed to the limit. And it's very tough. I mean, they really suffer, but they still do it, willingly. Why? They want to be a Marine. So there is meaning in that training. There is an understanding of why they're doing. There is a purpose. So they will undergo that training. Because the overriding thought is, no matter what it takes, no matter what I have to go through, I want to be a Marine. So nothing matters. So you can see that motivation driving them. Without that motivation, you cannot succeed. So to compare that, many years ago, I was in the army. We hated it. It was just terrible. But I noticed that everybody in the group hated it. Now, why would that be? It's because we were drafted against our will. It was compulsory. There was no escape. So there was this ill-equipped, hopeless army that forced you to join them and be part of them for more than a year, and you had no choice. So there was no motivation at all. So each one of us did as little as possible, as bad as we could. So what difference it makes? The motivation to find a purpose, to have an understanding of why we are doing something. So we said earlier that life is tough, life is confusing, life is uncertain. So without motivation going through all that is very tough. No wonder people get depressed. No wonder people get anxious. Of course, what is at the end of the road? Death. And in the meantime, complete uncertainty. It is like overwhelming without some understanding, without something to be grounded on, to hold on to. So we do have our goals in life. Everybody has certain goals in life. Modern psychologists tell us that these goals change. They don't remain the same. So when we are young, say in our 20s, we are not quite sure about our future, our career, our partner, and what we want to do in our lives. Then as we progress in our lives, we cross our 30s, 40s, 50s, we become settled in life. We form a family, we have a career, whatever it may be. So the researchers found that early in life, we are searching for meaning. Because everybody is searching for meaning. Everybody is looking for something to live for. So early in life, we search for meaning. Then as we age, we gain meaning. Our lives become more and more meaningful. I am a dad, I am a mom, I'm a scientist, I'm this and that. That gives a kind of identity and meaning to our lives. But then something interesting happens. After a certain age, the meaning begins to decrease, and the search starts again. So what happens? We retire. Now a big chunk of our personality, identity, is taken away. Say you were a very prominent scientist or a very successful businessman, but now you're retired. Nobody cares about how great you were. The fact is you are retired now, and that is over. So that big part of your identity that gave meaning to your life is gone, and it doesn't come back. Then relatives and friends begin to, get sick and die, pass away. That also takes away part of our meaning of life. So people find themselves later in life again looking for meaning. Because, I used to live for a family. I used to live for a career. Now, what am I going to live for? So this is a common experience that has been researched by psychologists, and this is what they found. So if our goals are in this world, this is what happens. We have to update all the time. Of course, we'll have these goals, but side by side, we need other goals. Because if the only goals are of this world, they will never satisfy us, and they will keep changing all the time. This world is called samsara. Samsara means that which is always on the move. It never stays the same. So we are hoping that our little world, our little life, will still stay the same. That our dear and near ones will be with us forever, etc., etc., etc. But the fact is that everything changes and nothing stays the same. So we need something that doesn't change. Like the saying goes, don't put all the eggs in one basket. There's a great wisdom in that. So our material goals, or the goals of this world, is just one basket. We need another basket with something that is not of this world. Sri Ramakrishna put it very beautifully. He said, do this as well as that. It sounds like a Zen koan. What does it mean? Do this as well as that. By this, he meant, whatever is here, whatever is perceptible to us, fulfill your duties, have your goals in this world. He's not telling you to go to the forest and become an ascetic. Stay here, right where you are. But do this. Whatever you have to do here, do it. But do that as well. What is that? You can call it anything you want. The search for truth. The search for God. The search for that which doesn't change. The search of our true self. Whatever you want to call it. Sri Ramakrishna says, do this as well as that. It's a beautiful way to express it. Don't neglect that. And there is an interesting fact that people don't realize. If we do that, thereby meaning searching for God, in whatever way you do it, according to your understanding, we don't care about your religion or your beliefs. We don't care even if you don't have a religion. But if you're looking for truth and permanence, so that will improve this, what you're doing here. It's paradoxical. We think that, oh, if I search for God, if I meditate, if I pray, it will take time away from my life. So I cannot do that. It reminds me of a nice story. There was a man cutting down a tree, and he was going on for a long time. But he was making little progress. He was getting tired and sweating and going on and on for hours. So his neighbor noticed this and came up to him and said, my friend, I notice you are working very hard all this time, but you're hardly making any progress, you know. This is going very slow. I think your axe is blunt. And the man said, yes, I know the axe is blunt, but don't you see what a huge tree I had to cut? I don't have time to stop and sharpen the axe. I'm too busy. So this is us telling, oh, I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to think of God. I don't have time to search for truth. Well, very good, keep at it. It will be very slow and painful. But it's a paradox. We don't realize that if we try to concentrate our minds on God, on something sacred, something higher, that same mind, when we apply it to whatever we have to do here, will be better, will be different. It's a trained mind. There's a difference between the mind that focuses on material things, like a great scientist's mind that can concentrate, and the mind that can concentrate and meditate on God. There is a difference. And that concentration we want, the concentration that comes from meditating on God, that will help every aspect of our lives, our interpersonal relationships, our own personalities. We'll be able to spot our own shortcomings, you know. It's funny because we know that everybody has defects, but somehow we feel that we are the exception. And that cannot be true. If everybody has defects, we have defects as well. But they are blind spots. We don't know about them. Otherwise, we would correct them. So when we meditate, these things will become we'll become aware. Where are our shortcomings? And we will correct them. But you need to sit and observe yourself, observe your mind. Otherwise, it's much more difficult. In all the din and bustle of our daily lives, we have no chance to look at ourselves and what we are doing. We are too busy. Sri Ramakrishna said, it is difficult to live in this world. As we said earlier, it's confusing, it is tough. He gave another example. He said, kids, they like to turn around for play. And they turn around and then they feel dizzy and fall down. He says, but there is no such danger if you turn around holding to a post. You can still turn around, but the post will help you not fall down. That post will keep you standing. So he said, life in this world will keep turning us around. There's no escape. But hold on to God, and then you won't get dizzy. It's like the pole star that the sailors used to use in the old days, because that star never changes its position in the firmament, in the sky. So the sailors knew, if we can spot the pole star in the sky, we know the points of the compass, and we can navigate easily. So God is that pole star in our lives. We have so many things to do, we have so many distractions, we go this way, we go that way, but if you have the pole star, it will give you a general direction. Yes, you go this way, you go that way, but you know what your goal is. You know what your direction should be. So, when we say making sense of life, can we really ever understand what life is about? Can we ever really figure it out for ourselves? According to Vedanta, there is only one way to be satisfied answering that question. One way that will remove all our doubts and will put an end to all our questions. And that is superconsciousness. We have to raise our minds to a higher level to understand life and its purpose, to truly understand life and its purpose. There's a nice story to illustrate this. There was a child, and he wanted to play with his mother. But the mother was busy doing some embroidery. And the child was looking at the embroidery from underneath. And it looked like so many threads hanging, you know. And he said, Mom, I want to play. What are you doing with that ugly thing? All these threads hanging. And the mother said, just give me a minute, I'm finishing. Then I'll show you. So she finished in a minute the embroidery, and then she turned it around. And it was a beautiful flower. And the kid said, oh, now I understand, that's beautiful. So the meaning of life is just like that. From below here, we are trying to understand. And it looks like makes no sense at all. It doesn't look nice at all. But when we attain superconsciousness, it is as if God says, here it is. Now you see. And at once we understand. At once it makes sense. It's not little by little. It's a revelation. And the reason why we cannot figure it out here is our reasoning minds they're too narrow. They're too small. They are designed for survival in this world of time and space, name and form. But when we go to a superconscious state, when we go beyond name and form, time and space, then everything makes sense. Why we live, why we die. So Vedanta says the answer cannot be found here. You have to become illumined. So that is another problem for us. We know it's not easy to become illumined and attain superconsciousness. So sometimes people complain that Vedanta is too lofty. Vedanta is too idealistic. Vedanta is too high. Always talking about Brahman and the spirit is eternal and all-pervasive and all that. We want some help here and now, in this world. So what are we going to do? If illumination is at least it looks like it won't happen anytime soon, what are we going to do then? Well, there are certain things that can help us make sense of life. One is the Shruti, the scriptures. The scriptures give us general ideas that are universal. You know, somebody asked Jesus, when is the kingdom of God coming? And he could have replied, oh, the kingdom of God is coming such and such a date, or it is coming in such and such geographical place. But instead of that, he answered, the kingdom of heaven is within you. That was true 2,000 years ago for those listeners, and it's true today for us. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Look and you will find. Search and you will find. So these are the universal, timeless ideas that we can get from the scriptures that can help us make sense of life. Holy Mother said, no one is a stranger. The whole world is your own. That's another universal teaching. If we want to love everybody, how are we going to do that? Consider them your own. For a mother, all her children are beautiful, even if they are not. To the mother, all the children are smart, even if they are not. So if you consider everybody as your own, You will love them. You will overlook their shortcomings. So these are universal ideas that can give us some hints as to how to live our lives. Sri Ramakrishna said, God alone is real, and the world is unreal. Now, it's not unreal, the world is not unreal in the sense that, like a dream, it is real, it's solid, it seems to be here. He said it is unreal in the sense that it doesn't last. It is here today and gone tomorrow. It changes all the time. And God is real means it never changes. It's always the same. He said, imagine you have a huge number, say 1 billion. Now it's a huge number. Say that is money, $1 billion. Okay, it's a huge number. Just remove the 1 at the beginning. What are you left with? Nothing. So I don't care how many zeros you have after the 1. If you remove the 1, you are left with 0. Because 20 zeros or 1 0 is 0. There is no difference. So he said, God is the one. It is God that gives value to everything. So this world is real in the sense that it has that 1 before it. This world is all the zeros. This multiplicity is all the zeros. But there is a 1 behind that makes the whole figure. It makes the billion. So God is that 1. So when you read the teachings of these great world teachers, they don't tell you what to eat, how long to sleep, what kind of work you have to do. They don't tell you all these details. They just give you some very general ideas that can help you find a way to live your life according to these ideas. If we keep in mind God alone is real, the world isn't real. That's just one example. You can pick and choose whatever you want. But that can become your philosophy of life. I live my life with the thought in the background that all this is temporary, that nothing lasts. So I will not be taken by surprise when changes happen. And you don't need to tell anybody this. It is your own philosophy of life. You have to figure it out, and it is your own choice. And it's just wonderful. You know, so Sri Ramakrishna never said, this is how you have to reach God. Follow this strict path. He said, look, you have to reach the roof. That is God. But I don't care how. You can take a bamboo pole, a rope ladder, a step ladder. Now we can add an elevator. He doesn't care, so long as you reach the roof. So any religion, any path, any philosophy of life you want to figure out for yourself is good, is valid, so long as it helps you grow spiritually. In Sri Ramakrishna's time, there were some sects that had questionable methods. One was called Vamachara, the left-handed path. So they had, questionable practices, controversial, you can say, and they used to drink wine at night, etc. And somebody was criticizing them to Sri Ramakrishna that, look, these guys, they are hypocrites, they're doing this in the name of religion. This is all wrong. And Sri Ramakrishna stopped them and said, no, don't criticize anybody. In every movement, in every sect, you will find some people who are sincere, who are making spiritual progress. So that is an interesting point. He was so open-minded. If there is even one person who is being sincere and benefited, we should not criticize, because he's helping that one person. So it doesn't matter how. It's up to us how to figure out our philosophy of life. Another thing Sri Ramakrishna said very clearly, and most of us know it. He said, the purpose of life is to realize God. This comes up again and again in his teachings. he reminds us again and again. The purpose of life is to realize God. So it's very clearly stated. So we have heard it and we repeat it. When somebody asks, what is the purpose of life? It is to realize God. It's a very easy answer. But if somebody says, what do you mean by that? Realize God. Well, samadhi. It is samadhi. Okay, then you ask, and what is samadhi? Well, it's a superconscious state of blissful awareness. There is no name and form. There is no time and space. You just exist. And you know that you exist. And it's a blissful state. Okay. Can you imagine such a state? Then we have to admit, no. I cannot imagine. I am only repeating what I heard. I cannot imagine what it is like to exist beyond time and space. I cannot imagine what it is like to exist beyond name and form. We have to admit, we have no idea. We are just repeating what we heard or what we believe in. So, okay, then how are we to achieve this? This state that we don't know what it is, but we know it is our goal. So basically our goal, if you're a Vedantin, the goal is to achieve something you don't know what it is, and you cannot describe or imagine. But we want to achieve it anyway. So it's a matter of faith. You take the scriptures as your guiding principle. So we believe in it, and we accept it, and we guide our lives according to that teaching. So, are we to withdraw from the world and renounce? No. Sri Ramakrishna said, be in the world, but not of the world. The boat should be in the water, but the water should not be in the boat. So as we said earlier, you don't have to change anything. Another thing Sri Ramakrishna said is, the Nitya and the Lila are equally real. This seems to contradict his earlier teaching, that God alone is real and the world isn't real. So let us look at this teaching. The Nitya and the Lila are equally real. What is the Nitya? The Nitya is the transcendental aspect of God that never changes. What is the Lila? Is the divine play of God in this universe. So when he said God alone is real and the world isn't real, he's looking at it from our point of view, the point of view of matter. It is unreal from that point of view. It is always changing. It will be destroyed. But from the Lila point of view, it is from God's point of view, from the illumined soul's point of view, it is all God's play. It's all the play of the divine in this universe. There is nothing but God here. It is the same consciousness manifesting as matter. If we can raise our minds to a higher level, we will not perceive matter anymore. Swami Vivekananda mentions in one of his talks an experiment by a British scientist of his time who inhaled laughing gas. And he perceived the whole world as made up of thought, ideas. He did not perceive matter anymore. This was a scientist. And that was the result of his experiment. And Swami Vivekananda quotes that as proof that we can raise our consciousness to a level where matter does not exist anymore. So this scientist, he perceived the whole universe and himself as made up of thought, of ideas. Again, it's hard for us to understand. But it is possible. Vedanta says we can change our consciousness and our perception of the world will change. So from the point of view of the illumined soul, this world that for us is matter, for them it is the divine plane. It is a manifestation of the divine only. Sri Ramakrishna said, do you think I only see God when I close my eyes in meditation? What kind of God would that be? You need to close your eyes in order to see that God? That's a very small type of God. He says, when I close my eyes in meditation, I see God. When I open my eyes, I see the same God before me. It's the same God appearing in so many forms as the whole world. There's a beautiful prayer in Sanskrit. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. It's very cryptic. It's really hard to understand. It's probably my favorite prayer. It says, Purnamada. Ada means that which is far from us. That means beyond our senses, beyond our thought, beyond speech. Purna means infinite. So that which is beyond our grasp, that is the infinite. Purnamidam, this, idam means this world is also Purna, it's also infinite. Then from that infinite, this infinite came into existence. But although the infinite has come out of the infinite remains the same. So confusing. It's so confusing. I feel it is like a sage trying to explain infinity to us and its relationship to this world. I mean, I imagine this is as close as you can get trying to describe it. That is infinite, this is infinite, this infinite came out of that infinite. Although this infinite came out of that infinite, the infinite remains the same. So mysterious. It's like really, I find it even like unsettling. Like it challenges our logical mind. It's just no way for us to grasp it. We just cannot grasp it. Somebody asked Sri Ramakrishna, is God with form or without form? Sri Ramakrishna's answer is again puzzling. He said, God is with form, God is without form, and infinitely more besides. Now, this infinitely more besides is puzzling. When you say God is with form, in India they believe that the sages, the rishis of the olden days, they perceive some divine visions in their consciousness, and they reproduce them, and they became the images of gods and goddesses. They come from the experience of the sages. It's not that somebody just made them up or imagined them. They revealed themselves to some sages, and they became God with form. So we worship those images that represent those visions, those divine entities. That is God with form. God without form, the best thing we can do is perhaps imagine the blue sky without any cloud. That is formless, you can say, but it's not really formless, but as close as we can get. But infinitely more besides. I mean, what can it be if it is not form, not with form, and not without form? What else, what other option do we have? Well, Sri Ramakrishna says that. And he never told an untruth. So we have to believe what he said. But it's very puzzling again, that infinitely more besides. So our little minds, they have this dual concept of black and white, happy and happy, form without form. But God is beyond that duality. We are trapped in this duality. We cannot think in other ways that are non-dual. But God is beyond. Sri Ramakrishna said, the world is unreal. This moment it exists, and the next it disappears. But on account of Maya, it seems to be real. Maya means ignorance. There are two aspects of Maya, vidya and avidya. Avidya means ignorance, and vidya means knowledge. There are many ways to describe them. Avidya would be selfishness, vidya would be unselfishness. These are two aspects of Maya. But then Sri Ramakrishna makes a very interesting statement. He says, those who go beyond Maya, they consider vidya and avidya as the same. That means knowledge and ignorance, good and bad, life and death, all the pairs of opposites. They see them as the same. They see no difference between them. Now for us, we see a big difference between good and bad, happiness and misery. We want to be happy, we don't want to be unhappy. But for the sage, they are all equal. They are the same. They don't see any difference. There is a nice story in Sri Ramakrishna's life. Once, soon after the temple was opened in Dakshineshwar, a madman appeared. He was dressed in rags, dirty. In one hand he was holding a bamboo stick, in the other a potted mango plant. So he was really mad. He's wandering about with a potted plant in his hand. And so he went to the place where the beggars were being fed, but the beggars turned him away because even for the beggars he was too bad. He looked too crazy. So the beggars turned him away. He did not mind. There was a heap of leaf plates with the food scraps on them, and the dogs were eating them in a corner. So he went and ate with the dogs. And the dogs did not seem to mind. I mean, he was acting really like a madman. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, I think this is an hour of Brahman. It's an illumined soul. So he sent his nephew to talk with him. And he could confirm that, yes, this is an illumined soul. So Sri Ramakrishna came and talked with him, and he spoke words of great wisdom. But for everybody else, he behaved as a completely crazy person. Then at the end, Sri Ramakrishna's nephew asked him for some final teaching as he was leaving the temple. So this man said, when you don't see any difference between the holy water of the Ganges and the dirty ditch water, then you will know that you have attained perfect knowledge. And he left. So that is an example, pretty extreme example, of how these people who go beyond Maya, how they see the world. For them there is no longer holy or unholy, good or bad. Everything is divine. And sometimes the reason why they behave like madmen is because they don't want to be disturbed. They want to be left alone. They are just in the bliss of God, that uninterrupted bliss. They move around that way. And if somebody can recognize them, yes, then they will teach, but not otherwise. So Sri Ramakrishna said, this world isn't real, but you can transcend it when you go beyond Maya. Then there is no holy or unholy. That is how Swami Vivekananda could say, my God, the ignorant, my God, the poor, my God, the fool. And he even said, my God, the murderer. Now, who can say, my God, the murderer? It's only a person like Swami Vivekananda who has gone beyond all these pairs of opposites. Now, from our point of view, definitely there is good and bad, and we have to try to be good. But these people have gone far beyond, and they are looking at life from a very high point of view. And from that height, everybody is playing a game. It's just a divine play. Everybody is acting a part in a drama. So, will you get angry with the person who is playing the part of a rogue? No, they're playing their part. And somebody is playing the part of a saint. Now, from our perspective, it's different. I'm talking from their perspective. They see everything as divine. And everybody's just playing, acting their part. So this is what can help us in figuring out our philosophy of life, the scriptures, the teaching of the scriptures. We can choose something that suits us and live our lives according to those teachings. In Sri Ramakrishna's gospel, there is a nice example. Ramericha. There was a weaver who, whatever happened in his life, he said, it is Rama's will, Ramericha. So when somebody came to buy cloths from him, they would ask, what is the price? Oh, the cost is 1 rupee, and my profit is half a rupee or whatever, so the price is 150. And they would pay without any bargaining, because they knew he's a holy man. So once he was, some robbers were coming with some loot, and they put the bundle on his shoulders and forced him to carry it. And then the police came on the scene, and everybody fled, and they left the weaver with the bundle on his shoulders. The police detained him and took him to prison. So then he came before the judge, and the judge asked him for what happened. So he said, by Rama's will, I was at home, just resting outside on the veranda. By Rama's will, the robbers came. By Rama's will, they put the burden on my shoulders. By Rama's will, I was, taken to jail. By Rama's will, I am in front of you. Then the judge realized this is a holy man. Release him. Then he said on the way home, he said, by Rama's will, I was released. So he could see everything, good and bad. It is Rama's will. That is another example, how to live our lives. We can take any of these examples and apply them. So we are running out of time. Another thing that I'll mention very briefly is having a guru can be a great help. The guru will help you in your spiritual path in a more personal way than the scriptures can. And for those who are not into gurus, that's also okay. Some people, for whatever reason, they cannot find a guru or they don't feel like it. You can have upagurus. What is an upaguru means auxiliary guru. The Avaduta, the wandering ascetic, he had 24 upagurus. So he learned from the earth, he learned from the bee, from the elephant, from many creatures. He considered them as his guru. So the idea is, whatever happens in our lives is an opportunity to learn. Anybody can teach us a lesson. You don't need a big guru for that. If we are receptive, we can learn from anybody. So the Avaduta said, for instance, I learned patience from the earth. The earth, the elephants trample on it, the people drive stakes into it, and they dig deep holes into it, and the earth does not complain. And in exchange, the earth gives crops for our sustenance. So be like the earth, be patient, whatever happens to you, and do good in exchange. So that's one example of one teacher that the Avaduta had. In Sri Ramakrishna's life, once he was returning from his room, from the garden, and a dog began to follow him. And he stopped, thinking that maybe the mother wants to teach me something through this dog. So you see Sri Ramakrishna's attitude. The dog followed him, and he's thinking, his reaction to that is, oh, let me stop. Maybe mother will show me something through this dog. So he's always learning. He always sees God in everything. Mother, maybe she will teach me something through the dog. So that is another thing that we can do. We can learn from anything and everything. So we'll finish with one final thought. The Sufi saint Rumi, he made this statement. He said, it's rigged. Everything is rigged. Everything is rigged in your favor. So there is nothing to worry about. So what is the meaning? Everything is rigged in your favor means this whole universe is designed for us to succeed. Everything wants us to succeed. It's rigged. So Vedanta says the same thing. We are bound to be free. We are bound to attain God. Everybody's destiny is to come back to our source, and God is our source. So this whole universe that seems to be hostile and confusing is rigged in our favor. Sooner or later, things will make sense, and we'll see that the purpose of this is for our own growth, for our own evolution. Everything is conspiring to help us achieve the goal, though we may not realize it at present. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnatsya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.